All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the No Free Plugs, No Free Ads. You notice Chris's unbranded beer there. It's the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show with your host, Alex, and the man who bats away all the seagulls at the beach. It is Christopher Condit, your American villain voices, and as always, the lukewarmiest of lukewarm opinions. We are on video once again, so if you're listening to this on audio, go check us out on YouTube. And I don't know why I enunciated it that way. Go check us out on YouTube. And please follow on all the social channels. You'll see what we clip and pull out there. And obviously, please rate, please subscribe, please like. We need all the engagement that we can get. We are 1 week out, I guess, from our exciting secretive interview. All we'll say is that Chris and I, when we were able to go to Birmingham, were able to connect with some fairly prestigious local residents, as well as some fairly prestigious former members of the Villa hierarchy that for some inexplicable reason decided to come on and talk to us next week. So keep an eye out for that. We will be posting it, all over the place, but that's going to be a really exciting one. We got some good questions.
Yeah, we're gonna keep a lid on it for now, but it is super exciting and I mean, an honor, frankly, for two dopes like us, So just two guys doing a podcast. But yeah.
Well, from the heady heights that we'll be experiencing next week to what feels like some pretty low lows right now, Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I obviously disappointed in the result. Had a great holiday, all that fun stuff. I know we've talked since then, but it's just we had so many good points in that game that we're going to talk about. But ultimately, at the end, this is one of those draws that doesn't feel like a good point, because it really felt like the 3 points were there for the taking, and there was a lack of execution that didn't allow Villa to get it.
Yeah, there's 1.1 and then there are 2-point lost kind of matches. And I think it's hard to not feel like, even though we had to come from behind, and we'll talk about that this wasn't 2 points lost. I don't have anything to add on the personal front. Basically, since we last spoke, I've just been driving a car for 2-3 days to get back from Maine. So we can skip that and just hop right into the match here. And so really, Chris, let's dive right into it. There were a lot of changes, some forced, obviously, as a result of the John Duran red card and the Matty Cash suspension. What'd you think of the lineup? We had Bailey starting, which we kind of predicted, getting him and Rogers on the outside. Onana went back to the bench, moving Yori in, and then with Rogers and McGinn across that kind of front line. And as we predicted, Konsa out to right back. So you read the lineup. I think we had a feeling that this is going to be what it was, but how'd you feel seeing it in person?
I mean, I still, and I don't know that it necessarily would have made a difference. So I have to say that, but I still like Onana and Tielemans together in the defensive midfield. I think that worked so well.
You mean Onana and Kamara?
Golly, did I do that again? Onana and Kamara. Yes. I mean, in the defensive midfield together. And I do think that part of the struggle is that the way that would function with Leon Bailey on the field is probably with John McGinn on the bench. And I think that may be a point that Unai Emery isn't ready to raise at the moment. Maybe in part due to the struggles that the team has gone through. Even though we're still sitting ninth and all that, it hasn't felt. It's been a trudge, I guess, or a long haul to get here in the first half of the season. So I think maybe Emery is hesitant to put McGinn on the bench because he's worried about how that will affect the team, the atmosphere around the ground, things like that. So I just don't know that he's ready to pull that trigger. So I think that may be why we're seeing a return to the bench for Onana. And I just I like Bailey. I thought he played well. I was happy to see that. I just think that right now, even with the injuries, our best 11 doesn't have John McGinn in it at the moment.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think there was a point in this season where we felt like John McGinn was playing up to the level that we need. You and I had criticized him for a couple different weeks, and then there were 3-4 matches in a row there where he really seemed to have a fire lit under him and was creating and doing all the things that we wanted to see him do. And then I would say over the past couple, we're kind of back to the criticism. Uh, I don't really know what he added today. I wouldn't say that his passing was particularly sharp. I don't know that his dribbling was particularly sharp. Now he's a good player, so this isn't to say that he had no moments in the game where he was totally woeful and hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I think that there are more things that we can do, to your point, with a midfield two of Onana, Kamara, and playing Yuri a little bit further forward that we simply cannot do with McGinn. Right now, I think that Yuri is a better number 10 than John McGinn is. And I think that that's kind of the simplest way to put it.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. So that was my only qualm. And I know to some extent we're limited by suspension and injury in a couple of cases. Clearly and I don't know if this is going to happen in January, but something has to happen at right back. Our plan, as well as Ezri Konsa played last year at right back, this cannot be the plan going forward. The defense is getting ripped apart way too easily, and we need reinforcement there. It cannot be Matty Cash or Ezri Konsa with Kostin Jelkovic coming in and playing meaningless minutes or
15 minutes once a month.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And I think the reason for that a lot of people aren't necessarily talking or going deep enough on is the fact that we've said the system has kind of changed. Last year, Ezri Konsa playing right back was really more of us having a lopsided three center back system and him dropping in. Whereas this year, he's being asked to play a much more traditional right back role, and he simply doesn't know what to do, nor should he. He's a center back by trade, and he's a very damn good one at it. But you're right. Like if we don't trust Costa, and we'll get into this a little bit later on, but it does seem like he's going to be going out on loan somewhere. If he's not doing what Unai wants him to, and so it's really like Matt Cash or nothing, then there's got to be an addition there. And I'm not going to go so far. I'll pour cold water on the take that I've seen that Matt Cash is like stealing a wage and that he's totally useless and hopeless in this team. I mean, we've said repeatedly, like, that's just not true.
Yeah.
But we need someone to challenge for that position. He's going to put
and
himself
cover.
on the line.
I mean, we just need cover.
We need cover. He's going to get suspended. He's going to get injured, and you need somebody else that can come in there. So I think this is actually a good transition into the match segments and those first 30 minutes, which were really all Brighton. If we're going to be honest about it, but the 12th minute, a long ball over the top. We talked about Brighton wanting to shoot in between that right gap, right back, center back gap. And that's exactly where the ball went. It went over the top, bounces. You've got Pau Torres kind of trailing João Pedro there, but like, I don't know why Konsa isn't just coming in and heading that ball back to back to Emi Martinez to catch.
You could have headed it to Unai Emery. If he could reach it, I would have been fine with that too.
Seriously, but really, like, I think a natural right back knows you run right through that ball, just head it up in the air and let Emi come out and easily catch it. And as he runs to it, I don't know why he kind of slows up and almost lets Pedro get to it first. I don't know if he's concerned because he doesn't know where his center back is, but that is what we're talking about as the right back positional awareness that Ezri Konsa just does not have because it's not his natural position, and that's why he doesn't work here. That goal is his fault. And a lot of people don't want to blame Ezri Konsa because he's been on the team for so long, and we've seen the rise with him. And because he's one of our best center backs, it just feels like he's someone who should be above criticism. But like that goal is his fault,
Yeah.
and you can't
I mean,
sugarcoat it.
yeah, it was, I think, and that was, I think, the frustrating thing for me is exactly what you brought up in that goal was that there was hesitation from Ezri Konsa there, where he didn't seem to know. He was of two minds, I think. He wasn't sure whether he could get his head to it, but then that left a place where when he slowed up, like now you're in an even worse spot. So because now you're chasing Pedro, and once again Villa concede on the first shot on goal for the 11th time this season, I believe, if memory serves. And in the Premier League, that's out of 19 games, that's a crazy ratio to concede that many times on your first shot on target. So I think I was actually thinking about this as I was prepping tonight. I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about a lot last year, although it doesn't necessarily hold true entirely. We said a lot last year that Villa didn't give up a lot of chances, but they gave up a lot of big chances. Now I think we're seeing a little bit of both, even though they didn't give up a ton of chances today. But when chances are created by opposition, they tend to be big chances, and it's because we're getting smoked on those big balls and on the counter coming forward. So
I'm
that's
sorry, we're what?
getting smoked on big balls. Yes, yeah, I should. That's getting clipped. So we're getting beat on the big ball forward, and on counters, and that tends to create really, really big chances for the opposition. And that, I think, is why we're seeing this alarming rate of concessions on the first shot on target.
Yeah, and those opportunities, to your point, are becoming more frequent. And I don't have a ton more to say on that first 30 minutes because I feel like I can kind of sum it up after that goal in two ways. What we've repeatedly said about Villa: pass the ball around slow against a compact defense and just don't seem to understand how they can break down a low block. Team wins the ball, counters quickly, and creates a bunch of great opportunities the other way. And you saw this with Emmy's save in the 26th minute against Enciso with that other beautiful long range shot that he took. It just seemed like Brighton knew, at least over those 30 minutes, how they needed to set up, how they needed to attack Villa, and precisely how to frustrate what we're trying to accomplish on offense.
Yeah, I agree. It was not a good first 30 for Villa at all, in my view either. Yeah.
So what then happens? Brighton leave a door ajar. They give up a penalty, and Villa are all of a sudden back in it. So there were two penalty shots in quick succession, both against Morgan Rogers. Give me your take. Were they penalties? Was this the right call? Should they have gone to VAR? Like, what was your read of the whole situation?
I thought both were close. I thought both were very close. I actually thought the first one was more of a penalty than the second. And I think, like, who was the defender there?
It was Van Heck.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So
Yeah.
when Van Heck, he does, I think, get maybe a slight toe to the ball there, but I don't think he does it without going through the man. So if you have to go through the man to get the ball, that's still a foul, and that's a foul in the box penalty. The second one, where it ended up being a penalty, I thought was much closer to not a penalty than a penalty. But my assumption was going to be for that one, whatever was called on the pitch was going to be what it stayed. So when they called no penalty on the pitch, it would stay no penalty. But that's where I actually think that maybe the human element re-enters the chat here, and I don't know who the VAR was in this game, but he said, "Ooh, man, that other one probably was a penalty. I thought we were going to give it, and now I don't know. Now maybe we need to give it back to him." So, like, because again, like we've always talked about, they're human beings, but both were close. The first one was more of a penalty to me. The second one, I thought whatever was ruled on the pitch was going to stay. What were your thoughts on both?
So I probably agree. I don't know. My gut reaction, and I texted this to you, was that neither one was a penalty. Um, the first one, I thought he got enough of the ball and came in from enough of a side angle as opposed to behind Morgan Rogers, where the contact came from, that it was enough to not overturn the referee on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's kind of the key part here is that the first one I say whatever is on the field is probably what I'm going with. I didn't see incontrovertible evidence on the replay to say that absolutely should be given. The second one is in this interesting gray area. And so let me paint a hypothetical scenario for you, right? Ball's in midair. Morgan Rogers goes to side scissor kick it, makes contact with the ball. A guy's just standing there, follows through, hits his leg, and falls down. Is that a penalty on the guy for being there? Or did Morgan Rogers just kick somebody in his attempt to kick the ball after he made the ball first? Obviously not a penalty. Like he kicked the guy.
Yeah.
So when you look at João Pedro's movement in this, and I think where a lot of the deliberation was for the VAR was that Morgan Rogers kicks, make contact with the ball, and then his follow through essentially brings him into João Pedro's foot. It is not João Pedro kicking out into Morgan Rogers and mistiming it and then hitting his foot. Why I think they ultimately gave it was because it's not like João Pedro was standing still. He does still jump up and lift his leg. And so there is some motion towards the ball, even if he doesn't necessarily kick it in. So I think they were trying to figure out what is that line between, listen, he's just standing there and got kicked, and he actually made a motion for the ball and didn't get it.
So if I could just, like, the example you gave, the first one is not a penalty, right? And the closest thing I can kind of relate to this is like a handball. So arm in a natural position, you're fine. That's not a handball. In this case, João Pedro is jumping and raising his leg to kick the ball, hesitates, but the high boot makes it not a natural position. Morgan Rogers connects with him on the follow through. And I think it does affect Rogers' follow through as well, meaning he can't get as much power behind the shot. Ergo penalty. I think that
really
may be the logic. It, you know.
So look, we'll add it this way. Between two half penalties, we earned one, right?
Yeah.
Like we'll look at it from an expected goal model.
Expected pens.
Expected penalty model. We earned one penalty today. And you know what? Kudos to him. I've criticized him for it plenty. That was a really good penalty from Ollie Watkins. And now there have been some suspect ones in between, but like end stat is he's scored, I think, 5 of his last 6 from the spot. So maybe if John Duran isn't on the pitch, Ollie Watkins is the penalty taker. It sure seems
right now. I think he is, right? Because who the hell else is taking it? Matt Cash.
Have Diego Carlos take one. See how the fan base reacts to that.
But yeah, no, I mean, it was a great penalty. Put it right in the bottom corner. It would have been a very difficult save had the keeper gone the right way. It was great. It's exactly what you want. And my hope was that was going to build some confidence with Watkins. And I know we're going to talk more about how he played. But the next period of play, to me, following that penalty was really where Villa missed the trick in the lack of final execution for the most part. And I don't want to take away from Morgan Rogers' goal or anything like that. But that was as dominant a 40 minutes as we played in a long time. So
there was only one result that was coming based on the subsequent 40-45 minutes. And it was nonstop. The commentators were talking about it all the time, just wave after wave of Villa attack. And if Brighton could get out, we would smother it right away, cycle it around the back, and just attack again quickly. Again, breaking the lines, getting that ball into the 10 spot, Yuri Tielemans beating a man and then spraying it down. And Morgan Rogers and Leon Bailey were so effective making those runs that you and I said they were going to need to, and using their pace and beating a man on the outside to create all these opportunities. They had fantastic games on the wings.
Yep. Yeah, I thought both of them played very well. Even if Rodgers hadn't scored that goal, I thought he had a fantastic game. His speed, strength, and ability on the ball today, he's shown like a star for me in this one, and he looked every bit the part that we all think he's capable of being. Even if he's had some disappointing games this season, he was his strength on the ball is something else. And his unwillingness to go down, where you see a lot of players go down at contact, he will fight through it and gain advantage and try to keep playing forward. And it's great to see. I really like it. And I still, all right, I want to reiterate, I think we have something really special here that we bought for £8 million, rising to potentially 15. That's just a great buy.
Well, since you took the left side, I'll take the right, and I'll talk about Leon Bailey because
this was a little bug there,
Yeah, exactly. Leon Bailey, fan club president. Listen, I will admit I have been on the Leon Bailey bandwagon even 2 years ago before he really came good, and I was the one in the group chat saying, "Give him time. When he's got to run, when he's loved, like he's going to be good." And I'll admit he hasn't shown it as often this year. I think that he has been criticized more than he's deserved. But that being said, today I think was the first time where we really saw him back to last year's best. I mean, the amount of men that he beat on the dribble, the amount of times that he was able to get the ball, hold it up on that right wing, and ultimately like find a pass, get some space from a guy. He was getting offensively into the right positions. Before it would be like the pass wouldn't quite reach him or he wouldn't make the right run. He had something like 3 or 4 shots today. They just happened to all get blocked. And they weren't even for taking bad shots. Like he would get the ball in the middle. You might remember he like took 2 men out of the play and took a shot. And it was like the 3rd or 4th guy that ultimately like diving got his foot on it.
I think it was dunk.
Yeah. He needed a goal or an assist to like really put the cherry on top. But like this was him back to his rampaging imperious best. And hopefully we stick with that for a while. I thought that we're going to pivot to the subs in a second here, but I thought that the decision to substitute him was right. He hasn't necessarily had the game time where I would say I feel comfortable with him going 90, and he had done well, and I want him to lift off that confidence. I wanted to see him get the applause, all that kind of stuff. So I think that made sense. But 54th minute, I mean, to your point about Villa's dominance, we had 79 passes in the final third. Brighton had 14.
Right. Yeah.
And so let's talk about, let's get back to Ali, I guess, at the end. Before we get to the substitution, though, you teased it a little bit. Let's talk about that Morgan Rogers goal that put us up 2-1.
What a finish. What a player. I mean, I'm trying to think of a comp for him that I've seen in a Villa shirt, and I'm not coming up with one when he's at his best. And today, I think, was one of those games where he really was at his best. And like I said earlier, his ability on the ball and his confidence to take the shot, it's a special thing. And he's so young, like we've talked about before, 23 years old. I think to have this type of player this young in the center of the pitch is going to be great for a long time, I hope.
I mean, the closest comp is Jack Grealish, just due to the dribbling ability, but Jack could never really consistently finish the way that I think Morgan Rogers can or will be able to. I see many more goals in his future than we had with Jack. So, that's the best I've got in terms of play style.
Yeah.
And to be fair to him, Ollie Watkins, hell of a dinked ball that curled in there, but the ability to chest it, hit it as it came down on the volley, and keep it low to the keeper's right, like that is some serious skill that I'm not sure everyone appreciates. They're just kind of like, oh, in space, settle it, shoot, score, but like that's not an easy thing to do, and we've seen a lot of that one. So let's definitely give him credit for it. 70th minute though, to the end, there was only one outcome that was coming, and it was not a Villa win. Unfortunately, again, the other team makes substitutions that affect the game, and Villa makes substitutions that at best do nothing, and at worst provide a detriment to our ability to see out the game. I mean, we talked about Matoma in the pre-match, and he was fine. I actually thought Ezri Konsa did pretty well against him, but he did get the assist for the equalizer. Yakuba Minta was everywhere on the right-hand side, terrorizing Tyrone Mings and Luca Dean, and just creating so many opportunities over there.
Yeah, so I think from a substitution standpoint, one of the trends or patterns that I would start becoming concerned about is that other teams are, like you said, bringing on subs that are affecting the game. And Villa seem to always, or often anyway, react in almost a state of panic where they're not sure how to handle. And I'm not talking just about the players, but the reaction. We always seem to be reacting to the game rather than taking the game to our opponent when it comes to the substitution piece of it, at least so far this season. Because what we saw from Brighton was a gang of attacking subs come on, and all of a sudden the game flips and they take hold of it and start hard charging at the Villa net, and the equalizer was always coming. So that if we want to look at that as a pattern of this season, we have several now that are big concerns. That's one of them, is that it always takes us longer to adjust to the opposing subs than it does for them to adjust to ours. It's a difficult thing right now, and I don't have the answer, but you have to hope the club does and the manager does.
How much of this do you think was Villa sitting back and inviting the pressure and not being ready for more dynamic attackers to come on? Matoma and Minta were two players that we highlighted in the pre-match as guys we need to watch out for. And probably lucky for us, they were given a rest. I think he said that Matoma had started the last 9 games in the league. But how are you not ready for those guys to come on and impact the game? I understand against the opposition that we were playing, against the 11 guys that were on the pitch for the first 70 minutes of the match, saying, you know what, they're not breaking us down. Their only hope is to get a long ball. So let's drop back 20 feet. Let's not let them get in behind us. Mm-hmm. But once those other guys come on that can create in a different way, why are you not adjusting the tactics to accommodate for that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great question, right? That it's like I said, that it seems like at that 70-minute mark, or whenever the subs came on there was like the best way you could describe Aston Villa was they were just running around everywhere. It was almost like they lost every sense of defensive shape or what they need to do. And maybe some of that is on the manager and management team for lack of adjustment. I don't know, but it was concerning to me how quickly those substitutes were able to flip the game from a period of extended dominance to all of a sudden we're sitting and it's just, one of those where you're sitting in the chair and just gripping the whole time. And every time the ball comes into your final third, you get that pit in your stomach going, oh, well, here it comes. Here's the goal. Here's the equalizer. And eventually it came.
Yeah. So like we said, equalizer came. Villa certainly had couple moments after that that
A
fell
couple of
to Sir
chances.
Oliver of Watkins, who ultimately was not able to put them away. And so that's probably a good transition into good points, bad points. But the one that I don't really know if it's good or bad, he had a goal and an assist, but how are we feeling about Ollie's performance today?
I thought, okay, that like he's a solid C today. He got the penalty goal. He got a very, very nice assist. Very nice assist. But if you look, he has 2 chances late. The 90th minute was the one that was more frustrating to me, although they were both decent chances.
The header.
The 90th minute was more frustrating because that's where the big ball comes over. He collects it, and he's running free down the left-hand side toward the box. There are 2 Brighton defenders to his right, and the shot likely has to come pretty early. Otherwise, the defenders are going to be able to, collect and step in front of him. And my initial thought when he gathered that ball was, he's got too much time to think about it. And that's, I think, exactly what happened, because what he did was dribble the ball toward the defenders, cutting down the angle for them, which is crazy, and ultimately didn't get a shot off because he just dribbled the ball too deep into the box and eventually attempted a shot, but swung and missed because by that point the defense was on top of him. So that one to me was one where I'm not saying he's got to score, because it would have been difficult. It wasn't like he was free 1v1 against the keeper with nobody coming to apply pressure, but you've got to at least put a shot on frame there. You can't not in that case, and he did not. Same thing after in added time, where he's always leaning back when he receives the ball in the center of the box, so that ball is naturally going to rise, and it might have gone out of the stadium. It was that far away from goal. So that's another one where you've at least got to put that ball on target to make the keeper do something, get a rebound, something. 2 very decent opportunities that could have at least been something that turned into nothing.
Third, there was also, as we approached the 90th minute in stoppage time, there was the corner where he got a free header and put it
that's
over
right.
the bar.
Yeah, forgot about that one. Yeah.
Those are 3 gilt-edged chances that, to your point, don't necessarily need to be goals. But if you're the week in, week out striker who's banging down the manager's door saying, I need assurances because you're playing this other guy in front of me,
who's scoring,
you got to make the keeper work. You want to be a superstar. You gotta put in a superstar performance. And I think this was one where he had the opportunities to get a goal actually from open play, a birthday hat trick, and just couldn't do it. So I'm with you. For me, he's right down the middle. It's hard to say that someone who had a goal and an assist had a bad game, but there also wasn't a lot outside of that goal and an assist that made me super confident that he's turning a corner moving forward and going to take full advantage of this opportunity.
I think what happens here, if you look, like if I were to look on Twitter right now or whatever, it's going to be the same criticism that he always faces. And that's that when it really comes down to it, he's not clinical enough. And his best moments are reaction and not when he has time to think about it and has to make the right decision, because then he'll end up over dribbling or overthinking it and we get nothing out of it. And again, I'm not saying he has to score in those. Like you said, he's just got to put the ball on frame to hope something can happen. Maybe you score, but who knows? You can't come away with no shots on target out of those 3 opportunities, right? That's ultimately where we land.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. So let's continue on the bad side, since that seems to be the way that we're trending. Morgan Rogers, we talked about how great he played. He is now suspended for what I think is a very, very important game against Leicester, a very winnable game. so we obviously lose some attacking impetus there. Thankfully, Jacob Ramsey seems to be back and healthy, was able to get some minutes
We'll need him.
today.
Yeah.
And then we also lost Pau Torres to what I haven't seen any reporting on it yet, but the fact that he couldn't put any weight on it as he walked out of the stadium really concerns me that there might be a broken bone in there.
He left the ground in a boot, and Unai Emery said he's going to have a scan tomorrow. So that's the only update so far.
Well, knock on wood, fingers crossed, because
It didn't look good. It didn't look
it
good at
did
all.
not look good. Tyrone Mings played well today, but you and I both think that Pau Torres is certainly our best offensive center back, and
Mhm.
not having him as an option at all really caps the potential success of this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's going to be a struggle now because he's certainly not playing for Leicester, right? There's no way that's
No.
no matter what. He's not playing. So you're without Powell, you're without John Duran, you're without Morgan Rogers. That's three really key players, to your offensive success so far this season that you're just not going to have. So it's
I mean,
it's a
arguably
concern.
at one point they were maybe the first three names on the team sheet,
Yeah,
other
right.
than Emi Martinez.
Yeah, yeah. Certainly, the other than Emi Martinez, yes, they're the first three guys you're putting down. Uh,
Crazy.
Bad luck.
Um,
Yeah,
okay. So good points. I thought he had a fantastic game all around, but just one stat that kind of emphasizes it that the commentators noted: only Cole Palmer and Bukayo Saka have created more chances than Yuri Tielemans in the Premier League this year.
I mean, you and I have been on this train all season. He, to me, is like one of the unsung heroes of this team because he has just been so great in the midfield, and especially now that they've pulled him forward. Although he did play back today, but when he's played forward, he's been so good. His passing is even from the more defensive role is like Dougie Luiz esque, because that was the
Mhm.
concern when we lost Dougie was he had so many of those passes that would spring eventual goals, and now Yuri Tielemans has really stepped into that role seamlessly. And
Arguably even more dynamic. I mean, you could say that
yeah,
he
yeah.
brings, I don't know if he's more athletic, but I think he uses more athleticism in his game than Douglas Luiz did.
Yeah. On a free again, by the way, that
Yeah.
we got him for free. That's crazy from Leicester. So he's going to have opportunities because you almost have to play him at the 10. We'll talk about that when we record later. But I don't know what else you're going to do without Rogers.
Yeah, I don't either, to be
Yeah,
honest, but that's something for Thursday.
yeah,
The other two that I had here, and then I'll let you add any others. Just to reiterate, Leon Bailey hopefully getting back to form. We're gonna need it in the coming days, coming weeks. Need another offensive piece that can hopefully create something. And even though we said it was neutral, and then I think we're kind of negative on him. Hopefully Ollie Watkins takes some confidence from this, from the good penalty, from the assist,
yeah,
and can build on that moving forward. I do think that he was getting into dangerous areas today and making the right runs. Obviously, we
yeah,
said we wanted to see him goal involved. He got goal involved with Morgan Rogers, had a couple
yep.
nice crosses. So, they're for someone with, I won't say a short memory, but maybe a selective memory, this could be a good game for him. There were certainly moments there that he can take confidence from.
So I think part of what is coloring our opinion is the result. If we win that game 2-1, we probably feel a little bit better.
That's
And
fair.
but so like part of the reason I think that we focused on those three missed opportunities is those three missed opportunities didn't allow us to break the tie. And had those just been three missed opportunities when we're up 2-1, maybe we say like, you would like to see a better ball there, a shot on target, something, but that's something he can build on now for Leicester. It feels different when you drop points.
Yeah, very fair. Um, so larger implication on the season. We stay in ninth. With Newcastle's win, we are losing ground on the European places now. It's 2 more points dropped from a winning position. As you said, it's another game where we've conceded from their first shot on target. And latest stat that I think a lot of us saw on Twitter as of like the past 2 hours ago, but we have now conceded 11 goals in the last 15 minutes of second halves this season. That
that's
leads
crazy.
the EPL. Leads the
Crazy.
EPL. Well, I think that's the stat that kind of says what you and I have been saying for a couple weeks, that like the substitutions are not helping at best, and at worst, like detrimentally impacting our ability to adjust to games.
Yeah. And it's funny because we did talk about, like, at the beginning of the season how much more depth we have, and we still do, even with the injuries, have much more depth than we had last year in terms of players that we can bring on.
The problem is, I think it's timing. It's 2 things. It's timing and how we need to adjust our shape to accommodate some of those substitutions. So let's look at the ones today. For example, first, Jacob Ramsey comes on for Leon Bailey, which I said I thought was the right move to get Leon Bailey out of there.
And the right time to get Ramsey on.
Right, and the right time to do it. But why are we moving Morgers out of that left-hand channel where he had been so effective all game long? Like, nothing about Jacob Ramsey's game says that he can't play on the right, or that he would be any more or less effective on the right than Morgan Rogers was getting moved out of position as well. So, like, why are you shifting around the formation like that? Second, Onana and Barkley coming on for Kamara and Tielemans.
Onana had a bad game, by the way. He had a bad game.
Also had a bad game. Yes, very sloppy. But like, why are you doing that after they scored the goal? That to me screamed like Yuri was our best offensive threat, our best ability to break their midfield line and ultimately like spring us into attack. And as soon as you need him to get a third goal, you're going to take him out. Why would you not move him up to the 10, take McGinn out, who was ineffective, and then bring Barkley and Onana on, for example? Or why are you not or if you want to freshen it up for better defense, because we were under an onslaught, why not bring them in before they scored? Why are you waiting until like the 80th minute to make that change? So, and then like Ian Maatsen comes on, which is kind of this blend of like, we're going for it, but we're not. I just like, I really don't understand the substitution patterns. And like, it almost is like a game of FIFA where we're in manager mode and we're just like, yeah, I need to give this guy minutes so that he can develop a little bit. So like, I'm just throwing him on there.
Sounds like your hashtag Emery out.
Don't. Lukewarm podcast. Lukewarm podcast. I am allowed to question aspects of the manager without thinking.
Yeah. No, I like that's a ton of goals to concede in the last 15 minutes in 19 games. Again, like 19 games. So, like, yes, it's a concern, and at this point, it's a real pattern. So we need to make adjustments as a team, as a staff, all those things. And I say we're not on that team or staff, but the team and the staff need to adjust because the book is out here. Like that's one takeaway I have from this game is the book on not this game, but this game and the preceding ones. The book on how to beat Aston Villa is there. It's quick counters. It's big balls forward to release your forward players, and it's to take your chances and sit deep because they can't break you down, and you'll come good eventually. Is I think the way things kind of work in a nutshell. So we need to do something to adjust. The team needs to do something to adjust against that because it's like everybody's playing us the exact same way now, whether they're 5th in the table or 17th in the table. There's very little difference between how these teams are playing us. And it's at this point, you need your manager. Love you, Unai Emery. Nobody's a bigger defender of you than me. But you need your manager to make adjustments here.
It's a bit like what Spurs are going through, honestly. 2 managers that were pretty well heralded last year, finished high up the table, competing for that last Champions League spot, and both seem to be struggling this year as teams have found them out. And to your point, managers have seemed unwilling to make adjustments to their preferred style.
Yeah.
At least I think Unai has made more adjustments than Ange Postecoglou has, and that's why Villa is higher up the table than Spurs. But like, largely unwilling to make the wholesale adjustments or changes that might be needed to get through some sticky patches.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think there's some symmetry there.
Yeah.
So you talked about us being halfway through the season, and I think that's a nice transition into our one cold water take of the day, which is that we are now midway through the season. We sit ninth. We've still got a negative goal differential, only one for God knows how many teams to have that. It's time to readjust our target for the season. And that is really just to get 7th place, the Europa Conference League, and hopefully get to the knockout stages of the Champions League. And that is not the playoffs. That is the round of 16 knockout stages. And if we do those two things, then Villa fans should consider this season a success.
I don't pour that much cold water on that at all. I don't pour any cold water on that, because I think that's a fair point of where we are. And really, if you look at a club like ours, Newcastle is a good example, that has come up to the Champions League. This would be a good result to stay in Europe, even if it's Conference League, to stay in Europe and achieve the knockout stages in Champions League like that. Yes, that's a success for me, because it puts us in a better financial foothold than we're currently in. And the longer you stay, one of the things that I don't know that everybody remembers, we've talked about it on this podcast, but the longer you stay in Europe, any level of that European competition, the more money you make from that European competition. So like Manchester United makes a ton of money for getting knocked out of Europa last year, I think it was, because they've been in Champions League, 7 years ago or whatever it was. So like that, the longer you can stay in, the more money you make in the long term. So stay in, compete, and win in Europe. I'm good. I'm happy.
You're just a banker, Chris. Just all about the money. Jesus.
That's how you win.
I know. This is the most capitalistic of capitalist sports, and when people try and pretend that it's not, it's quite humorous. I mean, look, we've said it before, if you just want to see a team win and support the local community, like Solihull Moors is right there. And unfortunately, Aston Villa and our owners are not going to be content to just be pissing around in League Two and hopefully winning the championship, championship of League Two, the League Two title every so often. Like so unfortunately that requires money to compete at this end. Otherwise, if you're not trying to win, like, why are you a fan of anything? I go watch movies or be an artist. There's no winning over there. So I agree with you that I'm not really pouring cold water on here. I don't think that this is really that different of a take than we had in our season preview. I think we kind of said 5th, 6th, and Champions League knockouts would be a good season for us. So maybe we're bumping it down to competition, but that is the team that we have, and the team that seems to be performing on a week in, week out basis. We've said repeatedly, like, every underlying metric says that this is a mid-table team and a mid-table outfit. So if we finish above mid-table and 7th, like, bully for us, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and again, like, financially, it works. And Conference League was fun. Like, I'm not trying to just get off this. Like, Conference League was fun. Champions League has been more fun just because it's bigger and all that. But like, let's not act like we didn't have fun watching on Thursday nights.
Now, look, I would still love to get 6th place.
Yeah,
I would still love if Villa can get the 5th place for Champions League, if ultimately we're able to make a run in the second half here and get there, as our competition schedule kind of lightens up. Like, yeah, that sounds great, but So it's not saying that we can't do that or that we
Correct.
shouldn't try for that. We're just saying what's realistic and what should we feel good about at the end of the season. And I think that Conference League and Champions League should probably be that target. If we miss one or both of those, then we can probably start thinking about this season as being a disappointment.
Right. Yep.
So that's pretty much all we got, but we got a few closing things here. So first off, I guess we'll say demanding of apologies, although I'm giving one. I referred to the International Referees Federation last episode as the FIA, which I'm pretty sure is the Formula One Association.
I was
It's
trying to figure out
IFAB,
what
and I
that
know
was,
that. I
but
don't
I
know
didn't.
what.
I didn't
We
know
even
what it was
posted
in
it,
real
put it on
time, so I
social.
wasn't going to call you out.
Yeah, it's IFAB. My bad. I'm stupid. And
Whatever.
besides that,
I demand PGMOL turn on comments on Twitter. Not for me, but turn on comments, you cowards. Turn on comments. It's a weak. That's
yes,
a weak move.
come talk to us on Red, White, Claret, and Blue. We
Yes.
promise. We're lukewarm. We will give you a fair chance to defend yourself. Chris may
we
not.
can watch video, and you can explain to me how this works. Tell me.
Yeah. We also want to say happy birthday to Ollie Watkins. We do love you, despite what people might think.
Maybe not the best pod.
We're really, really, really glad that you came to Aston Villa. We're glad that you keep scoring goals for us. We just need to give you a little tough love so that hopefully you keep doing it, because we want to see you here for the rest of your career, banging in goals and keeping our second favorite player, John Duran, on the bench. Maybe not. And then the last thing, as just a quick preview, we already kind of let the cat out of the bag that we got a big interview next week. But on Thursday, we also, as part of our preview, will start to look into silly season a little bit. Chris, obviously, we haven't done infiltrating the Villarati online for a while, but speculation on a number of deals is starting to get rampant. And I would say, Chris, you can tell me if you agree or not, but like credible enough that it's probably worth us analyzing or commenting on to a degree. Some of them. We're not going to do every one, but for example, this Turkish center back from Kasımpaşa certainly seems to be a lot of smoke there. Sammy Ill's recall seems to be coming out of a lot of locations. We have not forgotten your nickname, Sammy Ills. You are still beloved. The John Duran one seems stupid, but there was an interesting one saying that he could be part of a swap deal for Victor Osimhen. So I'm really curious to hear if you would do that one or not.
We'll talk about that.
And then Jaden Philogene going on loan and Ned as well. So we'll do a whole sort of transfer section on Thursday. If you've got any ones that you definitely want included, Louis Barry is another one. We can certainly comment on all of those. So
I have thoughts on Louis Barry.
Oh yeah, you do.
But anyway, we'll have a lot of that coming in Thursday for the Leicester preview and silly season, I guess, recap. And I will just say, just remember, it's silly season, man. Like, now is not the time to hit the panic button, and now is not the time to believe every report you see coming out of the Italian and Spanish media. I'm looking at you directly in the camera right now. Italian and Spanish media, you are a bunch of liars. I've never seen anything like it.
I thought you were looking at me. I was like, that's racist.
You're not Italian or Spanish that I know of.
Distantly Spanish, I suppose.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
All right, man. Well, anything else to add?
No, I'm all good.
All right. Well, then we're on to Leicester. And as always, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.